welcome to today's show, Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess, passionate, inspirational speaker, author, poet, and entrepreneur. Welcome to Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. I'm delighted that you joined me this morning. I want to give a big thank you to those of you who are listening today, and a great big shout out to all of you listening all around the world. I'm delighted and so grateful that you tuned in. I sure hope you're enjoying a fabulous day today and that you're having a fantastic week, because you know what? In the grand song of the universe, life is very, very short. It's short and sweet and oh so precious. So I hope you're making a difference in your own life, because when you do, you also make a difference in someone else's life. Now, a lot of folks really want to make their life count for something, but they don't know how to do it. You know, sometimes it seems so big to them, or they just don't know where to begin. So they ask me, Dr. Gloria, how do you do that? How do you make your life count? Well, you know something? It's really very simple, very simple. You make your life count day by day, step by step, moment by moment, every single day, 365, 24/7. You make your life count by simply being who you are, by being there for someone else who simply needs the glory, the wonderful power of your presence, right? You make your life count by the simple loving things you do for someone. Now, it doesn't have to be anything fancy or extraordinary. It doesn't have to be, written in headlines across the sky. You don't have to be a superheroine or a superhero, right? You just have to have a heart full of love. You have to have a heart that's meant to serve without any expectation of return. Did you know that to a child and to many adults, giving them your attention is the same thing? I mean, it's just like saying, I love you, just giving them your attention or your smile. For those of you who are like me, born to serve, we must remember one thing, that one of the best things we can do for other people, one of the best ways we can actually serve them and to make a difference, is to take good care of ourselves. Why? So that you can serve with a full sense of presence, right? Intellectually, spiritually, physically, all of that, emotionally, serving with full presence, and so that you can serve with a healthy body and soul and spirit. How we live is how we serve. How we live is how we teach or parent or lead in any aspect of our lives. So let's remember to take care of ourselves every single day, 365, 24/7. Okay, it's now time to step back and listen in. It's time to hit the pause button in your life for just a little while. It's time to lean back and imagine. Now, I just want you to imagine that you and I are in the same room. It's a nice, cozy den or a kitchen or a living room, maybe a porch. And I'm sitting right across from you, and I'm pouring you a nice cup of coffee or a cup of tea or maybe a yummy smoothie or a glass of lemonade. How about that? And we're about to have a sip. A small sip of what matters. Today's show is a show about one of my favorite people on the planet, and her name is Gwendolyn Brooks. Her life is what Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count is all about. Now, you can learn more about Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count by visiting the Gloria Burgess website. That's Gloria, Gloria, Burgess, B as in boy, URGESS.com. That's the Gloria Burgess website, GLORIA BURGESS.com, or by visiting Facebook And that's facebook.com/DR for Gloria Burgess, PhD, / Okay? Today's show honors one of our finest female writers, and her name is Gwendolyn Brooks. And it's all about the power of one. The power of one person who can be the difference, who makes the difference in another person's life. That person today is poet, novelist, publisher, activist, teacher, mother, daughter, wife, and humanitarian, Gwendolyn Elizabeth Brooks. Now, as I mentioned during last week's program, many of you know Ms. Brooks as a marvelous poet. And I know her as a poet, but I also know her as a kind, gentle, smart, and fiercely caring human being. You see, I happen to know Miss Gwendolyn as the one person who made a difference in my life at a time when I really needed someone like her in my life. Gwendolyn Brooks is one of those individuals who made a difference, who made a significant difference in my life. She was there at just the right time, at just the right place, with just the right stuff, pardon the pun, at just the right season of my life. And I was blessed to meet her not once but twice. And on both occasions, although they were many years apart, her impact on me was positively profound. So today, we're talking about poet and novelist Gwendolyn Brooks. Our focus is the power of one. Today's show is all about the power of one person, and we're honoring Gwendolyn Brooks. Now, before I dive into today's show, I just want to pause for a moment to welcome you, my listeners. If you're just joining us, I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess. This is Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. And I'd like to extend a very special welcome to those of you who are joining my show, or if you're listening to Talk Network Radio for the very first time. Let me tell you something. You are in for a real treat. I'm so excited to have you listening in today, and I'm deeply honored that you've allowed me to be part of your day so you can be inspired by the ideas and resources to make your life count. Today's topic is the power of one, honoring Gwendolyn Brooks. Now, as we lift up this prolific poet, writer, teacher, lover of children, activist, publisher, and humanitarian, I just invite you to lean back and relax. I feel her presence. I feel her presence here, right now, here with me today. And I feel her presence in my life in so many ways. You know what? One of the most powerful ways that her presence shows up is through the voices of other poets. I mean, we would not have the many, many poets that we have today. I mean, consider Lucille Clifton, Nikki Finney, Rita Dove, Payamba Jess, Cornelius Eady, Toy Derricott, Elizabeth Alexander, Natasha Treathway, Maya Angelou, Hayes Davis, Terrence Hayes, Kyle Dargan, Tara Betts, and I could list dozens and dozens and dozens of other poets, African-American poets and otherwise. We would not have these poets or their poetries without Gwendolyn Brooks. So these amazing poets stand on the shoulders of a pretty tall woman from a pretty tall time. That's the power of one person. The one person who can impact so many lives. And the ripple effect just keeps moving and moving and moving on. I mean, that's pretty astounding when you think about it. I remember years ago, many years ago when I was working with high school students, when they were in search of a poet with a very strong sense of style, narrative style, a strong sense of language, of voice, of imagery, of sight and sound and taste and touch and smell, they would inevitably turn to the poetry of Gwendolyn Brooks, right? It was here, in her warm embrace, that they learned about love and tenderness, joy, sorrow, compassion, cruelty, perseverance, defeat, and victory. It was here that they learned about voice, the poet's voice, and their own voice. So again, I want to thank you, my listeners, for joining me today. Did you know that Miss Brooks is the first female African-American poet to win the Pulitzer Prize and to become Poet Laureate of the United States? Now, there was an African-American male before her as Poet Laureate, and back in those days, they called him, I think, something like the library consultant to the Library of Congress, right? But these days, we call them Poet Laureates. So Miss Brooks was the first female African-American poet to win the Pulitzer and to become Poet Laureate of the United States. Now, during her life, she was awarded numerous honorary doctoral degrees, numerous prizes, and other worthy tributes. But the best way to introduce our woman of the hour is not by sharing her many, many accolades, right? Oh, no. The best way to introduce Gwendolyn Brooks is through her own words, through her own poetry and prose. This woman whose smarts and social intelligence and great love for people, this woman whose great gift was to see into and inhabit the personhood of others and to write in a voice that was at once removed yet very intimate, a voice that sounded like their own first-hand account of a life lived in a frugally, small, cramped, cluttered, cold-water flat, or the kind of abode that was furnished with the carpet of kinship, enlarged by the fondness of fellowship, and warmed by the hearth of love. Miss Brooks boldly declared, we are each other's harvest. Wow, I love that. We are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond. In other words, then and now, what she's saying, we belong to one another. We belong to one another. And thank goodness for that. Miss Gwendolyn's voice, and I mean her actual voice now, was measured and steady. Measured and steady, tinted with hues of the South. The body, the sheer weight of her voice had the gravitas that made you listen real close, the kind of voice that made you pay attention. Her voice hung in the air, embracing you with a sense of certainty, a knowing, a deep wisdom of a life blessed with abundance, the abundance of people, place, and the mighty presences of poetry. Hers was a voice that sparked diverse responses. And one of the common threads of these responses was something that Brooks heard throughout her life. She'd hear, you read your poem so beautifully. How does this happen? And she would respond, when you're writing a poem, you're not sitting there all cold and dull and dim. You're all excited. Brooks said, I try to read poetry to give an impression of how I felt when I was writing it. One of my favorite